back to the Champ.ie podcast, episode number 5 for the season. And can you believe it, lads? So 17 weeks away now from the Cheltenham Festival. On this episode, we are going to catch up with special guest Colin Tizzard. And lads, that's ahead of the Haydock, obviously, which is the big, the Betfair Chase on Saturday. And I'm joined by all the regulars, Thomas Coyle, Ronan Groome, and Mr. Mike Vince as well. Lads, how are we?
Good, Barry.
I'm as well as you look.
Well, lads, before we get on to Haydock on Saturday, Willie Mullins has a host. He seems to be unleashing nearly everything tomorrow. A couple of odds-on favourites. Mike, when I'll open it up to yourself here, what are you most looking forward to seeing at Gowran tomorrow? It has to be Fernie Hollows, is it?
It does, but it might just be that he needs... I'm not sure quite the ground will suit him, because I suspect down in the wonderful village of Thomastown, Noah and an ark have probably been seen, because I suspect there's been a lot of rain about. But Fernie Hollow has to start somewhere, and it's interesting that he's running him on dare I say, on an ordinary Friday, whereas a horse like this you would half expect to go to Leopardstown at Christmas. Whether he thinks it's far enough away, I don't know. But the problem for that is that I think it'll be extremely testing at Gowran. But I presume the other option is, what option does the master of Closutton have?
Yeah, well, Willie Mullins has, I suppose, really been playing with my emotions. Thomas Coyle, 2:32 tomorrow at Gowran Park. Willie, in his stable tour, said an Ergoname stays over hurdles, then enters him and declares him tomorrow 6-4 shot. Thoughts on Gowran tomorrow, and could we have an Arkle horse on our hands?
Well, your dream is back alive anyway, Barry. Looks a good race as well. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing Fernie Hollow, and I'll actually be lucky enough. I'll get a good look at him because I actually have a runner in that race tomorrow. So I'll be up nice and close and personal to him.
Yes, get you in.
I'd say it'll be me, not the horse, that'll be up close and personal with him now. But be all right. But for a Friday, it's a great meeting. An Ergoname is in their favour. I think he's Cocoa Beach to beat now, but you were putting me in my place last night when I mentioned that. So we'll see tomorrow. There'll be a few bubbles burst maybe tomorrow, or bigger dreams to lie ahead. We'll see.
Yeah, Ronan, he could end up in the marsh. Yeah, they'll run over 2 mile 4, although we just don't know what way it's going to work out. What are you most looking forward to seeing at Gowran tomorrow, Ronan?
Mighty Blue runs in the novice hurdle. She's run up a lovely sequence on the flat this season for Joseph O'Brien, and I'm very interested to see how she goes in that novice hurdle. She'd be valuable enough to be going hurdling with, so it's interesting connections decide to have a go. She's rated 104 on the flat, plenty. She has black top, I'm sure. Yeah, she was third in a Group 3, so that's very interesting. I think that they've pursued her. She's a 4-year-old, and something like the Mayor's Novel Hurdle could be on her sights if she gets a good start tomorrow.
Brilliant. Well, we're going to kick on with Haydock, lads. And the first race we're going to preview at Haydock is the 2:25. It's the Betfair Exchange Stayers Handicap Hurdle. It's a Grade 3, and we've 2 Irish Raiders in here. Thomas Coyle, Rona McAnally has the 4-1 favourite in here, the Jam Man. I'll give you a quick show of betting. Jam Man 4-1, Imperial Alcazar for Fergal O'Brien 5-1, Relegate 5-1, Main Fact 7-1, Third Wind 7-1, Gulanley 9-1, and it's 12-1 bar the rest. Thomas, does the Jam Man do the business?
Ronan McAnally has the Jam Man in here, and he seems to have the golden touch at the minute with this horse and the Real Deal doing him all the plaudits he deserves. Look, he was a very impressive winner of a Tri-Town. He ended up getting, I think, £18 for winning, or he won by 18 lengths. I think he's up to 150 now over fences. So he looks well handicapped off 143. Maxine O'Sullivan, who has won, I think, the last 2 on the Real Deal. She won a qualified riders race in Punchestown, and because he was going so far up the handicap, he took him out a few days later, and she rode him again in Cork. Look, it's a good race. The Jam Man definitely deserves to be favoured. The other Irish horse, Relegate, has to have a chance on his Pertemps run last year. He probably, if you actually watch him running Navan the last day, he probably needed every bit of it. He was dropped out like a horse that needed a run, and he stayed on. Look, he was bet 20 lengths, but he'd be getting £20 off Sir de Burley if they were meeting in a handicap. Puppy 10-8. He done 10 stone last week, but it's a nice weight for him. But the one that I actually like, and I just copped all week, and Mike might be able to tell us a bit more, is Third Wind. I copped all week that John Joe O'Neill Jr. was jocked up on him straight away as when entries came out. He actually finished, I think, a neck or a head ahead of Relegate in the Pertemps. There has been money for him. He's gone from 12s into 7s. So it's just interesting because he hasn't ridden the horse. Tom O'Brien has been riding the horse lately. So he's had a pipe opener 2 weeks ago. He finished 5th. He wasn't beaten all that far. So I think to give the race to the Jam Man is probably going to be the John Joe O'Neill Jr. ridden Third Wind, I think.
Mike, Vince, thoughts?
I can well understand where Tom is coming from here. That horse actually won one of those big finals at Sandown the Saturday before Cheltenham, which they always get lost under the radar because we're all talking about Cheltenham. And he's got to be a major player here. My one question is the trip. I just think a fast run 3 miles might just be beyond him. But I actually think that Relegate's got a huge chance here because let's remember that he's been placed. He's a Group 1 winner, right? It was the Cheltenham bumper, but since then he's been placed in hurdles at the very high level. And I think that run probably has brought him on. And if he does get the trip, and there's no reason why he shouldn't get the trip based on what we know about him, I think he is a huge player here. And certainly the booking of Puppy is not a negative. I mean, he was 4th at Navan, as you mentioned, 5th behind Sir de Burley. And looking back through it, of course, was also 5th to commander of the fleet back in 2019 at Leopardstown. And is an ex-Willie Mullins, now with Colin Murphy, who's back training after a spell as a steward secretary. So there's no way he'd be laying one out. But I think Relegate will go well. I've been waiting a long time for Main Factor to return to reappear. But it's all a question of what you make of the forecast at Haydock. He would want it Haydock bottomless. It ain't going to be bottomless, I don't think. Probably be soft ground, and that's probably not soft enough. So Relegate for me.
Yeah, interesting, Mike. Listen, I know that the Jam Man last Christmas, it was down to Ronan and then went to Cheltenham instead. I don't think McNally's horses last year. I think they had Aspergillus. I think that was a report for the yard, and I know that they did think that he could make up into a Life Stayers hurdle horse, and obviously he ran in it last year. I think he's definitely more of a hurdler than he is a chaser. And when you see what he came out and done last week at Navan, in the Tri-Town Chase, you'd have to think that obviously his English mark now is going to be a little bit different, but it's hard to look really elsewhere. Relegate, you guys are talking about him. Ronan, I'd be interested in your thoughts on Relegate. Was all the rage, of course, going into Cheltenham last year and disappointed. I see the cheek pieces are on for the first time though.
Yeah, she was all the rage, but she's kind of always been like that, Barry. She's been a horse everyone's liked, obviously, because she won the champion bumper really well and she stayed on, and she came back to Colin Murphy, and that was a big story at the time, Colin Murphy going back training, and this was the big horse that he got, Relegate. And I just think she never really did it last year, to be honest with you. She ran okay in the Pertemps, she ran fine, she was 5th there, but the kind of notion that she was really, really well handicapped, I don't think she was. I think she just ran okay in what was a very good race, and she ran okay again in the Grade 2 on her way back, stayed on. But I think she's always going to be a bit underpriced, Relegate, for some reason. I just think people have this idea that she's better handicapped than she actually is. Look, the Jam Man, he's clearly turned inside out again, because I remember backing him for the handicap hurdle on New Year's Day at Cheltenham last season, and I thought he could progress again. He just won at Navan quite well, and he was well held there, and I thought that was it for him then. But he came back out and ran second in the trade to Tracy's Enniscorthy, the Dublin race, and then they ran him in the Stairs Hurdle. He didn't go okay. His form kind of tailed off, and then you were kind of thinking he's gone, but obviously he's won by.
But that's what I said. The R did have Aspergillus, so.
Yeah, so that's a good point to make there with him, and he's won by 18 lengths. He's back over hurdles now, and he's off 148 in Britain. So look, you can see why he's favourite. The one I like though at the price, at twice the price, nearly 2.5 times the price, is the one Thomas mentioned, Third Wind. I really like him. I don't know how Mike's saying he thinks he can't stay. I thought you'd be using the old stays longer than the mother-in-law here, because this horse needs about 3.5 miles. I think he devoured heavy ground at Wincanton when he beat a horse called Jatalua. I think a lot of people will recognise that was Wincanton last St. Stephen's Day. He beat that horse who was on a 4-timer for David Maxwell. And then he went to Cheltenham, and he was just caught for toe coming down the hill, and he was getting pushed along by Tom O'Brien. He couldn't keep up with them, and then stayed on up the hill to finish fourth to the 3 Irish horses, Sire de Burley, 2-8 Permis, and the Storyteller. Like that he finished ahead of Relegate there, and those 3 horses that finished ahead of him are seriously well handicapped. Like, see what they've all done now. They've all enhanced that form significantly. I thought Third Wind had a nice little comeback on Newbury on ground that would have been too quick from behind Del Arca, and that would have put him just right for this sort of race. Hughie Morrison, he had a nice horse last year with obviously he's more known for his flat exploits, Hughie Morrison, but did very well in last season with Not So Sleepy in a big handicap hurdle, and I think he's got another good one here with Third Wind. Even if you go back to that Sandown form, he beat a horse called One for Rosie. She went on and finished third in a Grade 1 at Aintree. I always had my eye on him, and maybe this is the big handicap that he's going to win. I think he'll devour the ground. He'll love the trip. He's unexposed. I could see him going off very close to the Jam Man when the betting kind of gets going on Saturday. So Third Wind for me.
Why do we go around in such roundabouts, lads? The Jam Man just wins. He's just well handicapped. Moving on, we're going to listen to Colin Tizzard before we move on to the Betfair Chase. So let's hear from Colin.
So, delighted to be joined on the Champ.ie podcast ahead of Betfair Chase weekend by, I suppose, what better man to have on than Colin Tizzard. Lostintranslation was a winner last year. Colin, you've taken this 4 of the last 7 years. How is Lostintranslation ahead of the weekend? And do you think he could be a better horse this year?
Well, we definitely had, second half of last year, we had issues. For his run in the Gold Cup, he did land first of the last fence. So, he is a proper Gold Cup horse. Hopefully, if he's as good as that, we got a major chance. We won't be saying afterwards he needed the run, because he doesn't. So he's had a away day, and you couldn't be more happy with him at the moment. And I just think, there's a 3 in the race, or 4, a very good form, but we've probably got the best form.
And he's won on soft ground before. There has been talks about the ground may even end up softer. In your mind, do you think he could be suited by a small bit quicker ground than just soft?
He might. I've always had a slight, when we were running in his hurdles and novice chases, some of the owners thought he was better on better ground. I never did. I never wanted to try that out. I believe he's a big, strong horse, and I believe soft. I won't be complaining it's too soft anyway.
After Haydock last year, I suppose everyone was talking about, the Triple Crown, obviously going on to Kempton, and he disappointed. Now, you did mention there was issues. Would you have any concerns about the track, at Kempton going forward, maybe looking towards Christmas, or do you think that was purely down to the fact that maybe he was having issues with his breathing?
I think I got no issues with the track at Kempton. I believe in the King George, they always go fast. We have plenty of good form against Jeff Regis, over 2 miles and 2.5 in the novice days. He's not short of pace, as you see in the Gold Cup. He light up there going easily. No, I don't take it that Kempton won't play to his strengths, and it's one of the biggest races of the year at King George. you've got to be 100% on your game. Last year he wasn't, and found him out. But he did still jump in the second 3 out, making a noise. So he's, if we keep him fit and healthy, he's going to take all the beating in all the big races.
I wish you the very best with Lostintranslation this year. Very exciting horse. Last weekend, Colin, just want to look back briefly. You unleashed 2 novice chasers at headquarters at Cheltenham. Eldorado Alum was one that definitely took my eye. Looked the top prospect. He landed the big 2 mile novice. Gumball, look, he made it a fair test. Do you think you would have beaten him if Gumball had stood up?
Well, it was all to play for. Robbie Power thought he would have. He hadn't really got after Eldorado Allen. I was chuffed with how the horse travelled during the race and how he jumped. It was all to play for. And it was the second last. There's still a long way to go. So no one really knows for sure, but we thought at the time we had a major chance. But take nothing away from Gumball. He done. No one knows, to be fair, but we were delighted with that horse.
Yeah, your comments afterwards, Colin. That he might possibly be the best 2 mile novice chaser that you've ever had. Now, when you take in consideration that Q Card was obviously around in a golden era with Sprinter, Sacra, Alfaroff, that was a real good top 2 mile division at that time. That's a pretty big statement from yourself.
Yeah, it is. I forgot that Q-Card was a 2 miler in his first few years, but there you are. Q-Card went on to be a top, top 3 miler, wouldn't he? But this one could do that. I just think in the novice days, yes, he's not a Q-Card anyway, but. I think Q-Card trained on to be a 3 mile. I think we'll hopefully keep this one as a specialist 2 miler because his jumping is so slick, and let's see how we get on.
The big breakaway had plenty of people talking after his chasing debut this week. The RSA Chase has, I think, been spoken of as the plan. How happy were you with him on Sunday?
Well, there's a lot of pressure on us for that horse. We the likes of him. He's right up there with compare him with any horse we've ever had. He is a beautiful horse. What jumps and stays. He done it. What he done there on Saturday. We don't know what he beat, but the way he went up the running. I see Robbie flick him on the ass halfway at the run. He just wants to make him get on with it because he's got so much ability that he can stand off, he can fiddle a fence. Although he's only had his 4th run under rules and 1 point to point. We got to remember that with the big breakaway, his novice chase season will never be repeated, will it? It's next year he'll be running in all the, hopefully then he'll be running all the against the very best horses in the land. We must sort of get him. We can run him every 3 weeks for the first up to Christmas, and just let him have a run, get used to running and jumping, ready for what lies in store. We'd love to save him for Cheltenham, Aintree and Punchestown, really. So, but there's no reason why he can't go out and have, basically, it's not a hard race Saturday. He never had a hard race because he wasn't asked to, he couldn't give himself a hard race, could he? Because he was far better than the opposition. But it will be his easiest time the rest of his life joining novices this year. So, we still haven't decided where he's going to go next yet.
Cato Star, you mentioned the Cato Star novice is obviously an option at Kempton. I wanted to ask you just very quickly about, would you be concerned, did he lose concentration down the back? Robbie definitely did have to ask him on for 1 or 2 straights.
We all seen it, didn't we? There's not a bad thought in his head at home. I just think he just lobbing around and jumping, and he thought, well, he got the top there, and did he need to go out again? When he asked him to get out, he went out and done it beautifully, didn't he? He's just a raw baby. He's a horse. There's something unique in him. We did not clip him last year. we're not going to clip him this year. He has got a skin on him like a mole, and it doesn't. You couldn't clip it if you tried. It's not long enough.
Yeah.
And I've never known a horse like it. You know, we've had horses before which we only ever clipped once, but most of them you clip 3 or 4 times, at least. He is a beautiful. There's something about him that we just want to make sure we get our end right, and then let him do the talking.
Just questions from Twitter, Colin. So Todd asks, what is the plan for Lamander Pippin after a good third at Cheltenham? Would he be one maybe for the Welsh National?
He's left in the Lambrooks anyway. If he got in, if the top weights come out and he got in, he might go to that. He improved massively from his first run to his second run last year because he's quite a lazy horse and he only does enough on the gallops. And you see in that race on Saturday, again, Will Biddick was having to push him on for a circuit, and he still stayed on. You know, he will. I've just looked at him now just cantering now, and he does look superb. So he might take in the Lambrooks. Main aim will be the Welsh National.
Absolutely. Alistair Brooke asks on Twitter, Elegant Escape, what's the plan? Would he be one for the Aintree Grand National?
No, he won't. He's met with a bit of a setback. He's got a bit of soreness in one tendon, so we'll probably start with him.
And there's one particular question just come in on Twitter from Alistair Brooke. He said, 3 miles at Haydock, soft ground. Who do you think would win now? A Q-Car, Thistlecrack, Native River, and Lostintranslation when they were all in their prime?
Well, you'd say Q-Car, wouldn't you? Q-Car did win us 9 Grade 1s, and he won $1.5 million in prize money. You know, Q-Car in his pomp was a very, very. This one's not. You know, this one's 171. Q-Car wasn't much higher, but you know, I'd have to say Q-Car was. He'd done it. This one could still do it yet, but you know, Q-Car won a Ryanair and King George. You know, unlucky. You know, when he fell in the Gold Cup. You know, I would never take anything away from Q-Car because. You know, a lot of what we're doing in there is off the strength of what he done, and I think he's probably Lostintranslation is not far behind anyway.
Master Debonair, was he okay after the elite hurdle at Wincanton?
No, he scoped dirty. In a way, we scoped him again yesterday. It's fine. So it was a time when some of ours weren't running quite well enough. I would put a line through that. I'm sure he can come back out, and you know, we just want to give him 2 or 3 weeks now to fill up, and then we can find another. We think he's good enough to run in that big race at Wincanton, and he wasn't quite. It wasn't right. We found a reason for it. He was scoped dirty, so he'll find something else, and then we'll see how good he is.
Thistlecrack, what's the plan?
Well, he's back in full training. Yeah, we won't be ready till Christmas. He was a big old boy, and we're going to give him one more, you know, try and train him up to run around Christmas time and see where we are with him. You got to remember with him, he didn't hardly start racing till he was 7, and you know, I know he's 12 now, but he does look big and strong, and he's a beautiful horse, and we're just going to try. If there's anything which we don't like, we'll stop straight away. But at the moment, he hasn't had that many miles on the clock. The engine's still there, and we're going to try and run him either hurdles or fences from about Christmas onwards. L'Art du Vent,
he was one horse that I was looking forward to last year. I suppose, what's your thoughts on him?
I think it was a banger, yeah. So that time he went at the banger because everywhere else was getting firm, and banger was good to soft. When we actually got there, banger was good to firm. L'Art du Vent will run this Sunday at Newton Abbot. He's been third in one chase already. You know, I think he's progressing. He's a nice horse. We had to do his wind. He's got all to do, to be fair. You know, we thought the world of him since he won that bumper, but he hasn't actually won since. So Sunday will be, it's the right race for him Sunday at Devon, and that'll be the testing one really. But he looks like a chaser, and we hope he still is.
Brilliant. Colin Tizzard, one last question for the Champ.ie listeners. Is there any particular dark horse in the stable for the year ahead that you might want to mention?
The one I saw in the gallops this morning hasn't even run. Anonymous Cloud.
Anonymous Cloud.
I think it is. I think that's his name. He's a Fleming's Firth owned by Terry Warner and the Neil family. We schooled him over hurdles today, and they're probably running bumpers. But a magnificent looking horse. Does everything right on the gallop.
So the big one at Haydock on Saturday, the Betfair Chase Grade 1 over 3 miles and 1.5 furlongs. Lostintranslation, last year's winner. We just heard from Tizzard. Bristol De Mai, 2-1. Clan des Obeaux, first time back after a wind-up, is 5-2. Bell's Hill, 33s. Keeper Hill, 33s. Ronan, I'm going to start with you on this because last year, I think you made a statement on this podcast, this time last year, saying that if Lostintranslation bet Bristol De Mai in his own backyard, he should be 6-4 for the Gold Cup. I think that was actually the statement. But look, at different terms this year. Obviously, Lostintranslation won that last year. Went on to Kempton and had his issues then in the second half of the season. It's softer ground this time around. Does that make me think that you're going to be Bristol De Mai, Bristol De Mai, Bristol De Mai?
You must have mentioned the fact that I mentioned that quote about 10 times since. I got to be careful what I say, to be honest. Yeah, that was silly quote in fairness, because 6-4 would have been a ridiculously short price. But I think what I was getting at was that it would have been a serious performance for Lostintranslation to go and beat Bristol De Mai. And it was a brilliant performance. He jumped brilliantly that day and he travelled well, and Robbie Power was so confident on him, and he went and beat Bristol De Mai in Haydock, where no horse had done before. I just thought, watching the race, because obviously I was hugely invested in Bristol De Mai, I thought Daryl Jacob could have made a bit more test, just maybe kind of made it more of a stamina test, but the ground got quite quick and that probably didn't suit him. Look, I'd probably like him again here with the soft ground angle, but the Twist and Davis horses just haven't been going great at all. I'd be slightly worried on that. I know he's going to be coming here and it's going to be his Gold Cup, but just the stable form in general is a bit of a worry for me. The one I think is just slightly overlooked is the dual King George winner, Clan des Obeaux. Like, everyone's going to come here assuming that, you know, this is like a prep run, is seasonal debut. But if you look at Clan des Obeaux, take out the Gold Cup now, they've got to rule that out. He's not a Cheltenham horse. If he was going to win any Gold Cup, it would have to have been last year's, when they went so slow and he could have used his turn of foot over 3 miles there to his advantage, and he still finished 7th. He's just not a Gold Cup horse, and Nichols has said as much. Now that Nichols knows like what his tracks are, like Haydock and Kempton, they're two very similar tracks. Like 5 of Nichols' 6 winners that won the King George won the Betfair Chase beforehand, and he's said as much in the quotes leading up to this race. He said, "Why would we waste a run on Clan des Obeaux just getting him ready in a Grade 1? We need to have him ready to roll now, so he can, you know, these are his races, the Betfair Chase on a flat track at Haydock and the Kempton race. So I expect Clan des Obeaux to be ready to roll here. He's had a wind operation as well. He's 2 years older than when he finished 4th in the race last year. That wasn't, or 2 years ago. That wasn't a bad run at all. He's an 8-year-old. He's probably coming into his best form, and he absolutely walloped him in the King George last season. I think he's top class on his day. Obviously he is, because he's won so many Grade 1s. And Nichols is obviously the man with this race as well, because he's won it 6 times, I think. I just think he's overlooked. Lostintranslation is obviously a huge danger coming back to defend his title, but they haven't given him a run this season, which is interesting. They went to Carlisle last season just to warm him up, and they decided to come straight here. And it's actually interesting that a lot of Colin Tizzard's horses beforehand were needing the run. Now I know he's running to a bit of form now, but a lot of those horses were having their second run in the season. So, you know, I could see him, if they did get beat, they'd probably be saying things like, well, he needed the run. Well, you know, you're going to have to take that into factor now. So it's a level playing field. They're all having their first start here, and I just fancy Paul Nicholls to have Clan des Obeaux ready to roll. And if he does, he's a top class chaser on his day, and I think he'd be difficult to beat.
That's one of the most solid cases you've ever made on the Champ.ie podcast run. I'm nearly sitting there with my mouth open. Mike Vince, he makes a good point about Clan des Obeaux, to be fair. Cheltenham isn't obviously on the radar this year. What's your thoughts?
Well, you might want to hear from Paul Nicholls, who I spoke to in the week.
With Clan, you can slot them in and ride them any way you like. It won't be, it won't be an issue. You'd ride a little bit differently. You would Kempton because it's a different course, but a small field, is not a problem.
And how important for you that you go into a race like this with the yard couldn't be in better form if it tried, could it?
Well, you want, good form, and the chasers have been running particularly well. As a lot of them are shown, in particular, Yala Enki yesterday probably ran a career best first time out. So that's where you want to see them running. So it was always going to be a small field. It was pretty well that the Irish horse wasn't going to come. On unknown form, it looks between Clan, Lostintranslation, and Bristol De Mai. Keepers Hill ran a super race the other day behind in the Charlie Hall, but he'd probably have to up his game a little bit. Bells Hill hasn't shown a lot of form. Those in New York for a long time. He's 10 now and he looked on the downgrade. So it does look between those the main three looking at that.
And the one thing about Lostintranslation for me, I mean, I've told the mother-in-law to back Bristol De Mai, so that can't win. Is Clan des Obeaux is consistent. We know why he didn't get home in the Gold Cup. I still cannot work out why Lostintranslation, having done so well, winning this a year ago, then ran an ex-certificate stinker at Kempton the race after. And I'm just a little bit sort of thinking to myself, which Lostintranslation is going to turn up for this race? But Clan ticks all the boxes. I think Bristol De Mai would want it to rain until 3 o'clock and beyond on Saturday, and it ain't going to. And I actually, I'm horrified to say it. The one thing, I've just looked in my contract to make sure that I can say it. I agree with Ronan Groome. And I think that Clan des Obeaux is the one to beat. But this race is an extraordinary contest. First run in 2005. And only 5 trainers have trained the winner of it. 3 of them, namely Nicholls, Twiston Davis and Tizzard, have got runners. So 2 other trainers have had 1 win each. And I bet around this table you can't name them. But I'll give you one of them.
Snoopy Doopy was one of them.
The first one was Robert Allner and Kingscliff. And the other one, I've just heard it from the Brains Trust over there. But that just illustrates what a specialist race this is. I'm sorry to say, Ronan, bad news for you. I mean, I agree with you, and I know, and I am allowed to do so.
Thomas Coyle, we're going to have to start up the Lostintranslation engines here.
Yeah, definitely. There's too much coming from them 2 boys. Look, as well with Clan des Obeaux, he definitely has a chance, but in his last 4 years, he hasn't won first time out, lads. He always takes a run as well. So
hold on, who's Clan des Obeaux? That's not running here. It's Clan des Obeaux.
Whatever. The old French wouldn't be great, right? But no, for me, it has to be Lostintranslation. He's a year older. He's an 8-year-old as well, plus the same as Clan des Obeaux. No, look, he's a real. For me, he's the real deal. Obviously, Kempton last year did go wrong, as Mike said, but he's had his wind up. He's obviously had another one over the summer break just to make sure. And for Bristol De Mai, I definitely agree with Ronan that the form of the Twiston Davis yard is stink. Fernie Hollow last week is just an example of one. But Tizzard seemed to be a little bit better. So, look, I think he's going to come home on his own, to be honest. And you'll be all here next week saying, oh, yeah, maybe. Now, in hindsight, Ronan Groome will be saying, oh, maybe he is a 6-4 shot for a goal. But, he's my pick. He's the only horse in it for me.
I tend to agree with you. I think he's the best 3-miler in training this season.
Look, he'll have to beat Alboon Photo. That's the one he has to beat in Cheltenham for me.
As Colin said, like he jumped the last in front and probably ran with the joke out, for.
But this is one of the real reasons why Puppy Power has shipped off to England. Like, you know, like it was such a move for him to leave his family and everything. But these are the horses he's done it for, and this is the one horse he has all the faith in. So,
would the soft ground concern you?
Yeah, no problem. Once it's not going to be heavy, you know, as Mike says, it's not going to be that'll play into Bristol De Mai's hands. But as Mike says, it's not going to be that bad. So look, he's a big horse. It's grand. He'll be fine. He'll win with his head in his chest, and we'll be grand.
So 2 for Lostintranslation and 2 for Clan des Obo in the Betfair Chase. Gonna come on, lads, to Ascot. And I suppose it's after cutting up Mike, you know, Goshen for the second time on the Champ.ie podcast this season has let us down. Any updates on Goshen, first of all?
I have no idea as to what's what with that at all. I'm not across it. I think most of us were expecting him to run, but the only thing I can possibly think of is the fact that this is 2.5 miles. And maybe they are going to wait for the Jerry Fielden at Newbury next week. But that is speculation from my point of view. He's all speed, and that 2.5 miles would have been an interesting decision.
We have 2 grade 2s on the card at Ascot. I'll open the floor. Ronan Groome will come to you. Have you any fancy in either of the grade 2s?
Not particularly. In the Chanel Pharma, like, Real Steel is there, and I know you all think I have a huge affiliation with him. He did travel beautifully into the Gold Cup last season and got me very excited. But
well, what do you think about Nichols? What do you think he'll improve, or like it's very hard to say?
That's interesting because a lot of those Willie Mullins horses that have gone over have kind of not just taken a run for Nichols, haven't they? The Jared Sullivan horses, and he has Lorena as well, which is interesting. So that's the big race as well. I was kind of looking at that race, the Chanel Pharma, and thinking like Black Curtain with a bit of fitness on side, jumping from the front to Ascot, like he's getting weight off Real Steel, £6. He's getting £4 off Imperial Aura as well. I thought it was interesting. I didn't think he would be 5-1. I thought it'd be quite a close run thing. Without having a huge.
Yeah, the fact that he's obviously had the run, and you know, Bryony Frost on a Saturday. I definitely thought Real Steel was the one to beat here at 2-1. Mike, did you have an opinion on the 205, the Chanel Pharma grade 2 chase?
Yeah, I mean, I actually think Bailey's going to have a very good day at Ascot, because I think Imperial Aura, he really impressed me at Carlisle. That's not an easy course, and he comfortably won that race. And I know they think a lot of him, so he's coming into this race fit. And I think him, and in the big handicap chase, First Flow, we could see the King of Andoversford, just by the A40 on the way into Cheltenham, have a very good double. But I like Imperial Aura. And, you know, even at this stage, if you ask me to name half a dozen horses for the Cheltenham Festival, I'd need some persuading not to put Imperial Aura on that list.
Interesting. You mentioned the 317 at Ascot, which is the Colhurst Park Handicap Chase. That is the next race that we're going to preview. I'll give you a quick show betting. 11-4 Magic Saint, 9-2 Cape Land, First Flow. Mike Vince for Kim Bailey is a 9-2 shot. Abbey Magic 11-2. Drumconnor Lad 8-1. Gino Trail 16-1. Maracuja 16-1. Also, Thomas Coyle, will come to you.
I'll kind of take more the Irish angle on this. Abbey Magic of the Bromhead. Just as I seen, John Joe was put up early for the week. Brian Frost has been up on this for 3 or 4 days as well. So it was always intended that he was going to leave here. He won a nice handicap down in Cork on, I think that was Cork National Day. Rachel Blackmore. He'll probably suit Bryony's style of riding. He seemed fairly uncomplicated that day. Rachel booked him off upsides. I'd imagine he'll do the same. I think he got £5 for winning.
I have to stop you there, Tom. The last time the dogs started barking on the Champ.ie podcast, I think Golden Jewel ran a huge race. You only after tipping it up in that race in Down Royal, I think it was 16-1. What was the horse you were discussing there at the time?
Yeah, so it was Abbey Magic. It could be an omen. But look, yeah, he seems uncomplicated. She booked him away in front, sat up sides. But it could be a real Briny Frost kind of ride. She head off there on her own, and she mightn't be caught. Just first flow for me. He kind of tipped around in non-events last year, Mike. Like he was winning at odds of 1-9 and 1-16. He didn't have to beat Anton. This will be a different kettle of fish for him here. Just the other kind of Irish angle, Drumconnor lad. He's trained by an Irish man, but he's now trained in England. He won quite a decent handicap in Leopardstown before Adrian Keatley tipped over to England. I think he bet the likes of Bazio off lightweight, and I think Allardyce was third. But he went on, and this season he had a spin over hurdles to get going. He was no show, but 2 weeks later he comes out and he wins quite comfortably in Ayr the last time. He's got the man at the moment in England for the young lads, Kevin Brogan, riding him. I've seen him riding the horse today. The young lad has confidence no man has at the minute. He won in an odds-on shot for Johnny Farley, but he won half a length, but he never moved or even looked at the horse beside him. So he's a jockey in big form, and all the big trainers are starting to use him. He rode a winner for John Joe O'Neill last week as well. We've seen a bit of him over here, but not as much as we have since he's moved over there. He was with Gordon Elliott. He started off point to point, but he seems to be a young lad to keep on your side at the minute for big races. John Joe had put him on the favourite last week in the big hurdle that the shunter won. I think he was second, was he? The name kind of doesn't come to me at the minute, but he's claiming a valuable 7 off him, so he won't be far away either.
Ronan Groome, would you thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I kind of hate going with the Irish angle because it sounds like we're just going with the form we know, but I think Abbey Magic has to have a big chance. As Tom said, look, I just take the Irish form over the British form in general, especially in handicaps like this. And if Henry de Bromhead wouldn't be ringing this horse over if he didn't think he was well handicapped. He's only £3 higher than his Irish mark. 9-year-old with not many miles in the clock even. And the race he won at Cork last time beat a good mare called Lake Milan. She always runs well at Cork for Terence O'Brien. Beat horses like Ornua and Janmat, Quanimino. I probably said that wrong. So I just think that's pretty Cormino.
Just when you're picking me up on my bad French.
I don't think that's French. I just think that's hard to pronounce. Yeah, so I think he's pretty solid for Henry and Bridie, and could possibly be well handicapped off 143. So that's the only one I thought was interesting at Ascot.
We're going to come on to Naas, lads. The 102 at Naas is the Poplar Square Chase. It's a grade 2. And we don't have prices now for this, but just it does look a hot enough little race. We have Fakir Dudery, who is second in last year's Arkle, Notebook, who was all the rage going into the Arkle. And we've an interesting one down. He's receiving plenty of weight here for Willie Mullins and Paul Town, and it's Cashback. Mike, I'll come to you on this one.
Yeah, I fancy number 5 here. I haven't a clue. Because the first thing is what's going to get round with Cashback in particular. You know, he had a fall last time, right? He's had a long time to get off it. But I think that you've got to go with Fakir Dudery on the basis that second in the Arkle, and what the Arkle winner did last weekend at Cheltenham. It looks as though the Sporting Life Arkle last year was an above average contest. But 4 runners, immediately you think, what sort of form, what sort of a race are we going to get? Are we going to get a crawlathon where you can actually go and sign a few autographs and say hello to the mother-in-law on the way round? Or are we going to get a decent run race? But I will go Joseph O'Brien, Mark Walshire, because the form is in the book. He's a good jumper. He's consistent. If Cashback jumps clear, Cashback might well be the fly in the ointment, but top one for me.
Yeah, Cashback. Just thought it was interesting getting the weight. Course and distance winner. Won't have any problem on the ground. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's chalked up something like third favourite here. Just be interested keep an eye on the prices for Cashback, because I actually think Fakir Dudery, I'm not sure what you think about this, Ronan, but I think he could be more of a Ryanair horse than, obviously the division is quite open outside of Shotgun Poursois, the 2 mile division. We saw Put the Kettle on winning last week, but we really are waiting on a horse to kind of step forward. Altior's been off the track so long. But Fakir Dudery, I think we're going to see him up in trip this year. Would you agree with that?
We might, yeah. But like, if he goes and wins here, this is an excellent trial kind of race to see what see what they're going to do with him, because these are the 3 kind of top novices, 2 mile novices, chasers in Ireland last season. Bar Put the Kettle on, obviously, and if he goes and wins here, especially given him weight to wear, as you say, to Cashback, he'd probably be inclined to go the 2 mile route with him. In general terms, you prefer to have a champion chase horse than a Ryanair chase horse.
I think the fact that the ground is key to him, and the softer the ground, the better for him. Soft ground, 2 miles, that probably is his ideal, really. But just getting the weight Cashback, I just thought he was interesting here.
Yeah, he was. We were there at Naas that day, Barry, weren't we? Back when was that? Was the 5th Good Maiden would have the Grade 1, and he won really impressively. He jumped them from the front and beat a horse called 010, who's quite useful. And then he was only beaten by Notebook at Leopardstown and Christmas. I don't know what happened at Cheltenham, because he does run quite freely anyway, and he was quite disappointing there. But he's got £8 now from Fakir Dudery, who, remember, was getting weight off runners at this stage last year because he was a 4-year-old. So it's a fair old kind of swing for Cashback. Like, Cashback could beat Fakir Dudery, and Fakir Dudery could enhance his profile just giving him £8, you know. So it's that type of race. So I tend to agree with you. It'd be interesting to see how they price it up.
Yeah, well, lads, we're going to come on to the Brown Lad handicap hurdle. It's a Grade B. Thomas Coyle, no Golden Jewel. Why not?
It's too far on soft ground. 2.5 mile. 2 mile is plenty far enough on soft ground for him. So it is good run 2 miles. So that'd be the plan. No, it's a good race. I just have 2 picked out in it. A JP McManus horse, Philip Dempsey, 10-10. He's £13 lower over hurdles than he is over fences. He's back to the 2.5 mile trip that he won his beginner's chase over in Navan. Look, he could be well in. And the man with the colours, the green and gold colours, if he fancies him, he won't be a wild price coming, but he could open up at a nice price. The other one is one right down at the bottom of Anthony Mullins. Scalino, he won very well in Punchestown 2 runs ago, and he was favoured for the race that Golden Jewel ran in first time out this year. He was back, like he wasn't going to be bet that day, but he flopped. Look, he is only a 4-year-old, so you can give him maybe the benefit of the doubt, but just with a lightweight, Danny Mullins rides him. He mightn't be too far away either.
Ronan, had you anything picked out at a price in this? We have no prices yet, but anything to keep an eye on?
Thomas Mullins has won this race the last 2 years in a row, and he's got a good horse here called Barn of Vidone. Lightly raced 7-year-old, ran second last day in the Red Mills final that was delayed from the Punchestown Festival. I think that was a good run. He stayed on really well from the back then. He's up £6 higher now, but as I said, he's only 6 runs. And Thomas Mullins, you know, obviously he would have been targeting him at that Punchestown race because it was a very valuable race, but he still ran very well there, and I could see him progressing to go well here. So Barn of Vidone. The other one I'll just give a quick mention to is Damalisk for Eddie Harty even, and he ran him second at the Curragh to Mount Leinster, and that was his first run in 750 days. So he could be anything off a mark of 118 once again in the green and gold of JP. So I watch him in the market, but Barn of Vidone I thought was the solid option.
Some cracking racing at Navan and Cork on Sunday. Just Navan in particular, we have appreciated potentially making his debut in the first race on the card, maiden hurdle over 2 miles and 4 furlongs. We have Manila Endo, Ronan Groome's Gold Cup fancy. Looks like he's going to back up in the Grade 2 chase, and also pretty hot beginners chase. I think Willie Mullins has done well in this over the last couple of years. There's a couple in here actually of interest. Obviously, Elixir, Dane, but Alpha Mix as well of Gavin Cromwell. I thought he might make a nice chaser, Thomas, if he was maybe to show up here. Datsy's also in there for Gordon Elliott. I tell you what, Ronan Groome, we'll come back to you. What are you, apart from Manila Endo, is there anything at Navan or Cork on Sunday that's catching your eye?
Well, you'll just be up early at 11:40, Barry. You'll need to be rolling out of bed at that stage, wouldn't you?
11:40, sorry.
It's an early old start, but no, look, it's a great card. The one I thought was just caught the eye was Jessica Harrington seems to be obviously most of her interest is going towards the flat these days, but she still trains a couple of kind of select team of jumpers, and I think she could have a nice horse on her hands with Cross Hill for Ronnie Bartlett. I think he won very nicely a Punchdown the last day. The horse he beat was called Vanellier, and he runs in a maiden hurdle at Naas on Saturday, so that could give him a form boost going into this grade 3, and it'd be interesting. Yeah, I think Jessica's obviously a serious flat operator now. She's third in the championship again this season, but she still keeps the likes of Super Sunday and good horses like that around, and she could have a nice one here with Cross Hill in the Monksfield hurdle.
All my eyes are on Appreciated, lads. I will definitely be up at 11:40, Ronan Groome. If he lines up in that, I think he can still get him at 14-1 for the Ballymore. Mike Vince, most looking forward to on Sunday?
I was looking forward to a Sunday horse at Exeter, actually, but that's another. If I can go stay in the UK, I mean, Navan's a very good car, but there's a very interesting novice chase at Exeter on Sunday. Haven't got the field in, but whichever of the two Evan Williams runners lines up, I've also got Fada de Bros for Brian Hughes to go all the way to Exeter to ride one for Evan Williams. I regard as extremely significant. As far as Navan's concerned, Appreciated to like the 2.5. It's as simple as that. He's always struck me, and I think that's part of the reason why, in the end, he didn't win the bumper. Was that he was tapped for toe, and his stamina will come more into play over 2.5.
We reference back to the jump season preview with David Mullins. His one horse to follow this year was Appreciated. So lads, listen, naps and MB time. Mike Vince, we're with you. We're going to stay with you. Nap and MB the weekend.
I'm going to nap one which is way off beam here. First time out, the word is out here. Huntingdon, which is the third UK meeting, jumping on Saturday. A JP in the maiden hurdle called Comprend, having his first run, 4-year-old since being switched from France, will do me. And as far as an each way is concerned, the Tizzard horse Warlord runs in the 2 mile 2 handicap hurdle at Haydock at 150. That'll do me for next best.
Thomas Coyle.
We're looking pretty simple. My nap's going to be Lost in Translation. And my next best is a bit off the beaten track. It's down in Cork on Sunday. It's in that good, valuable 2.5 mile handicap hurdle. It's a horse called Clash of the Titans. He won a good race in Leopardstown, not Christmas gone, the Christmas before. He's been off since. He ran in Limerick maybe 3-4 weeks ago. Travelled well, just looked like he had the run, but I think there's a lot of improvement from that day, and I'd still say he's on a good handicap mark. So Clash of the Titans is my next best at each way.
Brilliant. Ronan Groome.
Well, it'd be rude not to go back for a bit of Betfair Chase redemption, so I'm going to nap Clan des Oboe and take on the Lost in Translation members club there, or fan club member, Thomas Coyle. So I just think he could be ready to roll, and no better trainer than Paul Nichols to have him ready for a Betfair Chase. Next best, I really like Third Wind. So I agree with Thomas there in the big 3 mile handicap hurdle on Haydock. I think 7 or 8 to 1 that he is now. I'd be surprised if that was that sort of price on Saturday, given the shape of the race. I think he could challenge the Jam Man quite close to favouritism. So third win for my next best.
Brilliant stuff. Well, I go back to Haydock for my nap of the weekend. 1:15. It's the graduation chase, and there was one actually, lads, that I had kind of down as a potential Ladbroke Trophy horse. But I think they're maybe taking a more of a simpler approach here. It's Jeremy Scott's horse, Dashel Drasher. Had his issues last year. He's first time off a wind up. But if you look back at his early chase form at the beginning of last season, he was given a champ a race twice. He's rated 145 over hurdles. He's a massive big horse. And he's rated 145 over fences as well. So I think there's a lot more to come from him. There's a small bit of money for him already. He's 3-1. That's my nap of the weekend, Dashel Drasher. And Ronan McAnally, lads, he has to be on the team this week. 4-1. NB, the jam man, I would be getting on that price now. You could be looking at another McNally gamble this weekend. As I said, the yard weren't right last year for the second half of last year. Aspergillus, that is a pretty serious issue. We saw what he done in the Tri-Town Chase. He's always going to be a better hurdler, and I think he's on a good mark still. Even off a mark of 148, which is his British mark, I think he can still win off that this weekend. So that's the jam man. That's the NB. So that concludes the Champ.ie podcast, episode 5, lads, of the season. We really are, I suppose, on that road to Cheltenham. And we'll be back next week, every Thursday between now and the end of the season. If you haven't liked or subscribed the video, make sure and do so, and let us know who your nap and NB is in the comments below. And let us know also as well who you might like to see on the Champ.ie podcast. If there's any special guests you'd like for us to get on, do let us know below. But have a good weekend and bet responsibly.